I know you've talked about people who have, $500 a month and they're not happy until they're $700 a month. They're holding off. But what kind of advice would you give a homeowner right now? Because I think, as you said, it's like we're trying to time the market. It's almost like, hey, I'm trying to juggle knives and hopefully I don't get cut with one of those on the way down. So what kind of advice would you give a homeowner right now who is in that situation, who can save $300, $400, $500 a month?
Yeah, very good question. And again, this week's bond market reaction to the CPI and PPI numbers, I think, is a pretty good example. Again, there's this like group think that is developed where everyone is convinced that we're going to see rates fall, and in a lot of cases, they're convinced that they're going to fall by a substantial amount. I would first remind everyone that the most recent forecast by all the major players in the industry, National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, et cetera, they're still all, as to their latest forecast, still for 2025 suggesting rates are probably going to be certainly in the 6 range, maybe into the high 5s. None of those observers are forecasting we're going to like be in the 4s next year. So, my advice is, when you're looking at these kinds of monthly savings, that's money on the table that you can take advantage of right now. And to hold off because you want to eke out that extra $100 or $150 or $200 a month, I would argue that's a pretty risky bet, because anything can happen. Something can change without anyone anticipating it that could cause bond yields to suddenly jump up, and these 5 5/8 or 5.125 rates on government loans, 5 5/8 on conforming loans. Well, gee, the next thing you know, we could be looking at, they could jump up by a quarter, 3/8%, and then you've missed an opportunity. And the way I've been thinking about this a lot lately is kind of using, like, when you're buying stock, there's that concept of, dollar cost averaging, and of course, if anyone knows about that strategy, it essentially means you spend a certain amount of money every month to buy stock, to invest in stocks. And the idea is, or maybe in a particular stock. And so you've decided, I'm going to invest a certain amount of money on a regular basis to invest in this stock, no matter what, whether the stock's gone up or down, because over time, dollar cost averaging it's all going to even out. And long term, it should be a good investment. So I started thinking to myself, well, maybe a refi transaction ought to be thought about the same way. As we talked about recently, the average closing cost, amount for a refi, a non-recurring closing cost, as we talked about, separating non-recurring from those recurring impound account, advanced funds, and so forth. It's usually going to be somewhere around $3,500, maybe for a much bigger loan amount approaching $4,000. In fact, I just locked in a refi for a loan amount of $550. The non-recurring closing costs are right under $3,000. So that pretty much a refinance transaction for the the median loan amount is going to be in that range every time you do the refi. So in my mind, I think a homeowner ought to consider like dollar cost averaging the refi decision, meaning if you have an opportunity right now today to refinance your mortgage, that might be 7.25%, and you can get 5 5/8 or 5 3/4 if it's cash out, or 5 7/8 if it's cash out, and you can save $400 a month, you ought to do that. Now, if it turns out after you've done that and rates improve further, we go another 0.5% or 0.75% in the next 6, 12, 18 months, well, then the obvious thing to do is then pursue another refi, because your cost basis is going to be about the same. And then by doing that, you might then eke out another $100 or $200 a month. The point of it is, I think that's a better strategy to optimize your savings over an extended period of time over, if I show you can save $400 a month now, but you're trying to get $600, well, consider this. You don't know when rates may fall enough to get that $600, if they do anytime soon at all. And in the meantime, you're giving up that $400 a month savings every month until you get to your goal, if you get it. Why not take that $400 now, and then you're saving that amount each month as you wait for that extra 0.5% or 0.75% or 1% further improvement, and then refi again. That way, again, you're optimizing your total savings over an extended period of time if we're going to have an extended downward trend interest rate environment. So that would be my advice as a better way to think about it. Ignore all the news. Look at the dollars you can save right there on paper on those worksheets I give you. Grab those savings. And then let's see what happens. If rates get a lot better, we'll do it again. And in the meantime, you're saving $400, $500, $600 a month. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I just think it makes a lot more sense. I think it's a better approach.